right, welcome to Conversations in Creativity. I'm Regyna from at Maytree, and I'm joined here today by Swati Kameshwar, and we're going to be talking about astrology and then creating some art together. So most of you know me, but for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Regyna Curtis. I'm the creator of at Maytree. I am a soul wisdom mentor, an intuitive artist. You can see some of my artwork behind me. I still do this. Like I still don't know where my behind me is. Whatever. And I also am an art channel, so I actually use my intuitive gifts to channel messages through my artwork. So creativity is something that's super important to me. It's one of my soul wisdom languages, and I am so excited to share that with you here today and to talk about astrology, which is also a way of knowing for me. It's not, I'm not an astrologer, but I definitely use astrology as a tool a lot along my journey. So before I introduce or have Swati introduce herself, I'm going to actually just run through quickly the materials that you'll need to have with you for our creative portion of this workshop. So the first thing you'll want to have is some paper. I'm using watercolor paper because it's a little thicker, and I'm going to use watercolor paints as well. And then I have a Sharpie. You can alter these materials in any way that works with what you have. These are just suggestions. I use a template just because I have a template to draw the rectangle, but you can also use a ruler or you can just draw it by hand. Totally fine. Other supplies you'll need to have are some kind of watercolor paints. I'm using Arteza watercolor markers. They look like paint brushes in a marker. Some water for your watercolor. And Swati, I think you have a more traditional watercolor set, right, with you, if you want to hold that up.
Yes, this is a very old but much loved watercolor pan.
I love it. I love it. I'm using mop brushes, but really you can use any kind of watercolor brush. And then I have a couple of markers. And I apparently don't know where my camera is on my laptop.
I can see it.
Okay. I overshoot it every time. Okay. Those are the supplies. And so Swati, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and then also introduce us to the astrology that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. Sounds good. Hi, everybody. I'm Swati Kameshwar. I'm an astrologer and a transformational coach. And I specialize in helping people navigate life-changing situations with grace. I also help them to find the gift in those transitional times and to really work with tough transits in a way that we can bring more intention to it and to help them set up the next phase of their life for joyful success. I'm also a former engineer, and I have transitioned that position to a coach, so I'm thrilled about that. And I'm here to talk about the unusual astrology that we are experiencing these days.
Yes, that's an understatement.
Yes.
There's a lot going on in the universe, isn't there?
There is, absolutely, yeah. I will go ahead and share my screen, and Regyna, let me know if you can see it.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
There we go.
All
and it
right.
looks like Lachelle just said hello. She says, hello, beautiful souls. Lovely to see you both online together. It's lovely to have you here, Lachelle. Thanks for
Hi,
joining.
Lachelle. Yeah. Okay. So today we are going to be talking about the Aquarius full moon that's going to be coming up on Sunday. And that's the second Aquarius full moon this season. And it has a lot of significance. So let's see what's happening. Here we have the chart of August 22nd, which is when at the exact moment of the Aquarius full moon. But there has been so much focus on the Aquarius Leo axis in the last 1 month, because we had almost a month ago, we had the first Aquarius full moon, followed 2 weeks later by the Leo new moon on the 8th of August. And now on 22nd, we have the second Aquarius full moon. And that is happening at 29 degrees and 37 minutes of Aquarius and Leo. So the sun is in Leo and the moon is in Aquarius. And there is this focus on the future, on our vision for the future, on living our life aligned with our soul purpose, and all of this leading to the evolution of humanity. Because when each one of us is aligned with our soul purpose, then that's one way that humanity can evolve so much faster. So the Aquarius energy is all about bringing in that higher consciousness so that humanity can evolve, and Leo is about fully embodying our self-worth and our self-love, like radically embodying our self-love so that we are able to express our uniqueness in the best way possible. uh, there's lots happening on this day when we have Jupiter at the same time, on the same day as a full moon. We have the moon very close to Jupiter in Aquarius. So Jupiter is expanding all those Aquarius themes. We have Mars in Virgo trining Uranus in Taurus, which is really beautiful because this whole year has been filled with a lot of squares to Uranus, and that can be a kind of a aggressive energy forcing us to take action. So Mars in Virgo trining Uranus allows us to take action in a gentler way, but you do have to watch out for opportunities that present. Then
Swati,
we, yeah,
sorry, can I interrupt you for a second?
sure.
Can you talk about a trine, what the energy of a trine is? Because the way that I understand it is a supportive, it's almost like, because it's a triangle, right? So it's like a supportive relationship, but
Yes.
kind of coming from different angles. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So a trine is when two planets are 120 degrees apart, and so when that happens, the both the planets will be in signs of the same element. So here Virgo is an Earth element, Taurus is an Earth element as well. So both of those are working together, as opposed to a square, which is when they are 90 degrees apart and they will be in different. Um, they'll be in different elements. For example, earth and air, they don't see each other as well as earth and earth together. So there is this kind of a supportive tone to that transit. With Mars in Virgo trining Uranus in Taurus, it becomes easier to take action. It becomes easier to take bold action if you combine both these energies. Does that answer your question, Regina?
Yeah, I think so. I was picturing, I know last year we had a lot of squares, right? It was Mars and Pluto, I think, were squaring off. Am I wrong? No, maybe not Mars and Pluto. Who was squaring last year?
So last year we had a lot of conjunctions with Pluto, Jupiter and Pluto conjunction, Saturn and
Yeah.
Pluto. So those conjunctions means those elements, those planets combine their energies, and it's like it's just all of it together.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, there we go.
yeah,
So yeah, I was just thinking about that square being more like I almost picture like fists coming together, right? Like they're opposing each other. Whereas
yeah.
like I think of a triangle where it's like it comes together and is this
It's a gentler way.
creativity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So squares are they force us to take action. So it's really not an option to stay in that position. And sometimes we may not be ready for action, or we are resisting it, and that's where we feel the intensity of it. Whereas with a trine, it's a gentler thing, but you do have to watch out for opportunities where you can take action. So that's it helps to be aware of that energy.
So it's more the more you're aware of that and taking that action rather than it happening without your
Yeah, yeah,
participation, active
that's right.
participation, I guess. Okay, beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for outlining that.
yeah, sure. Then on the same day, we have Venus in Libra, trine Saturn in Aquarius. So again, Libra and Aquarius are air signs, and both of these, all of these transits together, they are helping us to activate our vision for our life, and that is the key thing about this full moon. It's the vision, and also who must we be to fulfill this vision. So it is favoring bold actions, expansive bold actions related to our life purpose. It's also about owning our authority in relationships. With Venus trine Saturn, there is this thing about having balanced relationships where we are owning our authority, and there is no lesser than or greater than dynamic happening. It's also about anchoring our soul desires in the physical realm. So Venus represents our desires, our heart's desires, what we really want. And Saturn gives us a practical way of anchoring that desire in the physical realm. and also about taking consistent steps towards our desire. So all of that, there's a lot going on with this full moon.
There is for
Yeah.
sure. So, just to get people started in thinking about how we're going to do this creative activity that comes with it, and I know you've got a little more information, but there's some phrases that are standing out, like changing or really transforming into our power, right? Like embracing our own ways of being, and also taking active participation in that transformation kind of seem to
Yeah.
be some of the themes.
Yes.
Are there any other kind of just like one line phrases that you'd like to get people thinking about?
Yes. Actually, after I created these slides, I was creating another set of slides for a different video. But what I saw was Kali, the asteroid
Mm,
Kali, is conjunct Saturn.
okay.
And that's even, that, I feel like that's a huge energy to pay attention to. And that underlines the question, what is our absolute truth? So, what is true to us
Mm-hmm.
is a super important theme to be like, this vision, it has to be true to us. It has to be true to who we are. And who must we be to fulfill this vision? It's about embodying our absolute truth. So
Okay.
no more fakeness or having false identification with things that we don't care about anymore. All of that is being stripped away. So truth,
So
living
what
with
is
absolute truth.
I love that. What is my absolute truth and who do I have to be to how did you word
Yeah.
that?
Who must we be to fulfill this vision? Uh,
Okay,
and yes, how
great.
do we live this absolute truth?
I love it.
So yeah.
Thank you. I'm writing that down.
Yeah. And the other thing with this full moon is it's going to be, you'll be able to see it in the sky between Saturn and a very bright Jupiter. Jupiter is pretty bright in the sky. If you look in the southeastern part of the sky at around, for me it's around 10 o'clock, I can see them very clearly up on the up in the sky. It's very visible. I can see a very faint Saturn, and to the left of it on the bottom is Jupiter, and the moon will be in between, closer to Jupiter. So see that if you can. And that's one way to communicate with the moon and with this energy, to ask for that higher, for your highest part of your life to be revealed to you. So, doing things like journaling, meditating, just being with these questions, even redoing this activity around that time can open up some more information for you.
Yeah. And so when you say around that time, what date specifically are you talking about?
So I have it here in the slides.
Mhm.
August 22nd, the moon peaks at 8 a.m. So the night before, on Saturday night or even Sunday night. Uh, Saturday night, you'll see the moon between Saturn and Jupiter, but Sunday night, it would have passed Jupiter, so it'll be beyond that. But either ways, the energy is pretty strong during both those days.
Okay, wonderful. So
Yeah,
Saturday night is a great time to aim for doing a journal around this, recreating this activity that we're going to do, or even taking it and going back into it and reworking it or something along those lines.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, and here, this is just summarizing what we've talked about. Leo is about loving yourself fully and finding that strength in your uniqueness, and then having the courage to express and share your authenticity. So, the same thing that we've been talking about all this while. Aquarius is about tapping into the higher consciousness and connecting with the vision for your life. And all of this is about inspiring others by simply being who you are. So, your truth, living your truth, and then inspiring others from that place.
Mm, I love it.
Yeah. So, to summarize, the full moon is asking us to explore what lights us up, do the healing work needed, and I feel like part of this workshop is also to help us do that healing work. And because living our vision means living with an open heart and lots of self work. So sometimes we do need a little bit of letting go of old habits to come to this place. um, and
Yes. So
yes,
true.
absolutely, yeah.
I feel that. I feel
I've
that.
had to do that, still doing that.
Yep.
um, but then having the commitment to that vision, taking the steps to do towards that vision, having the courage to do it our own unique way. That is so much Aquarius. And I just want to say that we get clarity from taking these definite steps.
Mm-hmm.
So without taking the steps, oftentimes things are fuzzy. And I just want to end by saying that it also takes patience. We are wanting to tap into the highest vision of our life, and it takes patience and courage and clarity and all these good things to actually bring it to life.
Beautiful.
So, yep.
Love it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. So before we go into the creative activity, I just want to see if you have any questions about what Swati just was, sharing. Please feel free to add them in the comments, and we can address those too as we work through the creative part. Because as we do this, we're going to create together today. I'll be creating, Swati will be creating. We'll continue having conversation while we create, hence the name, Conversations and Creativity. But we'll also, join in the conversation. If you have questions or you want to share something, please do. Okay. So Swati, I'm going to take down your slide for a moment.
Okay. I'm going to stop
Perfect.
sharing. Yeah.
And then I'm going to add mine. But first, I want to talk a little bit about just where this activity came from. And, Swati and I connected a couple weeks ago, and we're talking about offering this workshop. And when we were thinking about what we wanted to provide as the activity, as the creative activity, what came to mind for me was something that I used to do, a personal practice that I started doing at a time when I also was really just starting to learn about astrology. And it was, short version, it was after a big breakup in my life. I had just moved to a new city. And so I was in a point where I was really exploring who I am and what types of things I was like, where my boundaries were, right? Like what I would allow, what I was ready to release. And so I started to create this daily practice. It came up very organically. It wasn't something that I'd ever seen. It just came to me. But what it allowed me to do was to create a compassionate boundary for myself, to hold a space for something that was really positive, within a time that felt kind of negative, right? That felt really overwhelming, that felt like at times like I was drowning in it. But it allowed me to really bring in the joy in the mundane, right? I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, and Swati and I were talking about this. She's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense to me that you would do that because you have all this Virgo energy. So this is this is my completed one, and I'll put up slides of this in a moment. But what I did was I created this outer boundary, and the outer boundary is kind of it's really the space in which I would say this is the outer limit of how far I'm willing to go with this energy right now. And then the inner space is really just an organic shape that I created. Some days it would be smaller because that's where I put those positive things from my day, those moments of joy, those kind of mundane things that were happening, where I would really find those pieces of joy. Now, this is a much larger space taken up in here because I'm in a place where there is a lot of joy in my life, and yet there still are a lot of things that I'm releasing and working with too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see how I did this. Oh no, hold on. I don't know why that is doing it that way. Let me see if I do it this way.
This seems to be working.
This seems to be better, but
Yeah.
yet and then it went away though. There we go. That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't need it to be a disco. So you can see what I've done here is I've outlined this rectangle shape, and then I organically drew another shape inside of it. Inside are things that bring me joy, things that I see as my authentic self, right? So Some of the words I just I fill up the space in different ways. You could just write them out. You don't have to do it in this kind of graphic way that I've done it. Do it in whatever way feels good to you. I used markers for these so that they would then show through the paint later. But these are what about me feels authentic? What are the things in my life that feel really authentic to me? And so in here, I wrote devotional practices and setting compassionate boundaries, and then intuitive movement. So those are things that really support me to be really authentic and be myself within this current moment. I made this currently. The things around the outside are things that I'm ready to let go of. And so the words that I put in there are overcommitting, taking on and holding, guilt, shame, grief, and being responsibility for emotional and physical weight of others. So those are the things that I'm ready to release. So a little bit about me, just kind of what things I'm working on in my life. So in order for me to really lean into these things that are in the middle, I have to release these other things that are around the outside. So hopefully that gives you some context into what we're doing. So once you do that, I'll walk you through the steps so you can just see the whole process. Once you do that, then you're going to, I use the symbols of Aquarius. You could decide maybe Leo feels better for you or something you're more tied to. And the colors I used on purpose because these are colors that really make me think about Aquarian energy, Leo energy. So I had when I tuned into it, I felt this kind of like a rust color, and then these bluish green colors were coming to mind for me. Swati, I'd love to hear what colors come to mind for you as well.
For me, it's blue purple for Aquarius and yellow for Leo.
Perfect. Wonderful. I love it. Yeah, mine are, yeah, it was kind of like a bluish purple and then like a rusty orange. But the one that I picked up to use today is like a yellowy color too. So excellent. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no right color to use or wrong color to use. It's really whatever feels good to you. And then using that big mop brush that I was talking about, I then went over and dissolved the pigment of the watercolor. And that's that very Aquarian energy of, the water, that kind of dissolving energy.
It's the waters of cosmic consciousness. So it's just dissolving all of it, bringing it to neutrality. And from that neutral space, you can create your vision.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the intention. And, I just want to say that holding the intention is the most important thing. The color, whatever you have on hand works.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And same thing with how you go about this. So we can start creating whenever you are ready to. I'm just going to move my keyboard so I can actually do this project with you too, and we'll keep chatting. And like I said, if you have questions or you want to share something about your experience or even what's coming up for you in this moment, right? So it might be that you start working on this and one of the things that's really interesting to me about creative practice is that it helps you bring what's going on in your imagination, in your emotional world. It brings it into an embodied space and then helps you express that out. So when you're moving this energy through, and a lot of times people will ask me, they'll say, well, what if I don't like what I'm moving through, right? Because there's so much, I don't know, discourse, talk, like discussion. I don't know the right word to use there, though, about the law of attraction and, like making sure that you're focused on and saying things in this very positive way. But there's also a piece of that I think is missing in a lot of those conversations, which is if you are suppressing something or holding on to that because you're afraid to speak it, then you're also, you're keeping that in your energy, right? Yeah. So a lot of times especially with transits in my experience, and I'd love to hear what your take on this too, Swati, but a lot of times I understand that when I'm moving through transits, what's happening is something is coming up. It's being shown to me, like the energy of a full moon, for instance, right? It's like shining a light on something that gives us the opportunity to then consciously decide, are we going to keep that or are we going to let it go? Right.
Yeah.
And so, tell me.
It will bring things to the surface of your awareness. So, we may have a conscious intention, but then there's all this unconscious stuff going on, which is also, that is going to be part of the energy, like you said, in that law of attraction concept. But these transits will bring it to the surface of your awareness. And that's where some of these practices can really help us to deal with the unconscious. And that's what I like about creativity. It brings the right brain together with the left brain. It has them both communicating, the mind and the heart. And the conscious kind of intertwines with the unconscious, and it gives it an outlet. I feel like in the most graceful way possible, an outlet for that unconscious to release. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And even just thinking about watercolors as a medium, one of the things that when I first started using watercolors in my own artwork, it was not that long ago, actually. And I was in a time where I really was needing to let go of a lot of different structures that I had in my life. A lot of things were changing. I was, moving into a space where I was stepping into my own empowerment in my work and in my life and in my financial life, and like all these things were coming up, but it also felt at times like really out of control, right? Like so many things were out of my hands, out of my control. And for some reason, I mean, energetically, I could talk about exactly why that is. I didn't consciously know it at the time, but I was really drawn to pick up watercolor, which was not a medium I'd ever really loved before because it was so watery. I'm a Capricorn sun, and I I like to, and I have five
Structure.
in Virgo. So like, I like structure. I like clear lines. I like to know exactly what's going on. And watercolor to me felt messy. It felt emotional. It felt like all the things that I always would try to keep like neatly tied up in boxes. And yet my whole world was like, that's not going to work anymore. And so I started playing with watercolors. And one of the things that I've come to really love about it is that it isn't, you can direct it, but you can't control it. Right. And the things that I really love the most in my work, like the parts that I really love are the ones that I would have like considered to be a mistake before. I don't know if you can see this kind of like this spot right here where it just kind of like the water just pooled differently or, something like that. I love those, but I had to come into that relationship with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the softening of the earth and the rigidity. And that's where I had a very similar experience to you, Regyna, because I have Mercury and Mars in Capricorn. And when Pluto started to go over that, it was digging up the earth. I was going through a Neptune transit at the same time, which was kind of washing it away. No control.
Yeah. And those times can feel so unstable. But I think one of the things that I really love about creative practices or astrology, like these tools that you find during those times, that you can hold on to those, right? Like when you feel like things are just really wobbly, and you hear all the time people are saying, oh, surrender to it. It'll be so much more peaceful once you surrender to it. I agree with that. And yet I say it with some sarcasm in my voice because from an outside perspective, absolutely. When you're in it, you're like, holy crap, like this sucks, right? Like, and to actually release and to actually let go and surrender doesn't always feel safe.
Yeah.
And so having something that you create, whether it's this practice or it's going in to look at your chart each day or learning something on a deeper level, gives you kind of that place where you can mindfully connect, and you are surrendering in that way, but you're really doing it in a way that, that feels accessible to you during that time.
Yeah, yeah. Surrender is a word that is used so sometimes I feel loosely sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's so much that goes on before we can, there's so much that needs to happen before we can come to that place of surrender.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And that's, I think, where the water helps. Working with the element of water, creative activities help with that because it's
Mm.
moving you in that direction. Um, and
And it
like,
can be in a gentle way,
it can
right?
be in a
Like,
gentle way. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you can also, you can combine these tools, right?
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're in the rapids, or you feel like you're
Yeah.
in some kind of like swirling emotional, like chaotic space, build yourself a boat, right? Like, it's funny,
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
how I chose to draw this for this time. For some reason, I was like, I feel like there needs to be this
Something
opening
else.
in the
Yeah.
center, right? Like,
Yeah.
because this is the outside part, and sometimes it's also on the inside. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes we're surrounded by it, but then we're also like, it's in us too. And so it's like,
Yeah.
how do we then give ourselves a lifeboat, right?
Yeah.
How do we build a practice, that something that we can hold on to, something that we can float
Yeah.
down the river in,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lifeboat, or an inner tube or something like that. And so
Right.
astrology might be part of that,
Yeah.
or creative
Yeah.
practice might be part of that, or running, or just spending time in nature,
Yeah.
or poetry, like, there's so many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
um
And it
Swati,
comes back to that your truth, right? What is your truth? And taking responsibility for living your truth. And that's what we're being asked to do.
exactly, yeah. I was going to ask you to talk about a little. I know you said that when you first came into astrology, you were going through some major transits,
Yes.
and I know that creativity and your artwork is something that you really found to be helpful during that time, as well as astrology. Could you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right from a child, like when I was a child, I used to love to play with colors and I used to love to play with paint and things like that. And I continued that for much of my life. But then when I became an adult, got a job, all of that started to dwindle.
Yeah.
And then I had my children, and then I really didn't have time at that time. The priorities were completely different. But
I
when,
imagine.
yeah, when I woke up, it was because I was entering my midlife planetary transits, which are also known as midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody goes through midlife crisis, but some people may have, because of the position, the day you're born, because of the position of planets, sometimes you may have a little bit extra stuff going on in your chart. And that extra stuff for me was Pluto. Not only was I going through my midlife transits, but Pluto was sitting on my Mercury. And that woke me up. I didn't know what it was then, but
Mm-hmm.
when I found out, when I got introduced to astrology and I went back and looked at those dates, it made total sense to me.
Yeah.
Uh, but having the knowledge of it is one thing, and then having practices that help you deal with that transit is a completely different thing. So part
Mm-hmm.
of it was part of my healing work, and that's, in the slides I talked about, when we want to live our vision, it may take us a little bit of healing to get to the point where we can be the person who is living that vision. And for me, that healing came in large parts by reclaiming my own creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I got introduced to the concept of intuitive painting, which completely freed me from all these ideas of what painting and creativity is. And, it's nothing to do with artistic skill or technique, but it's really, your own creative life force coming through that medium and things like that. So it was a very, very freeing concept. And I started to paint. I started to paint again after many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I realized that I was happy just playing with color. That was my, whether it was using my fingers or water paints or, acrylics or anything else. It was just playing with color that brought me so much joy. Uh, and that was, I remember that year, 2017, is when I started to paint again. And that has continued to be my practice. And what I realized during that process was that my intuition opens up completely when I paint. So I just go have like a half an hour painting session,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll get ideas for days. So that's what I noticed. And it was such a beautiful connection to my inner wisdom through that medium.
I love that.
So
I
yeah.
love that so much. That like makes my heart so happy. Um, I absolutely resonate with that where and I'd love to hear anyone who's watching, give us a like, or if that resonates with you, or send a comment as well. Um, what I said about creativity, right? Creativity to me is the birthing of something in our potential into reality, right? So as we tune into what's in our vision, what's in our imagination, and we allow that to come through, that is our intuition, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of times our intuition lives in a lot of different places in our bodies, and it's in our field, it's in our auric field. Excellent. I love it. There's some love, some likes coming through. So definitely resonates with other people too, because, um, you know, we have this kind of movement of energy that's always happening. It's coming in and out of our chakra system. It's coming in and out of our aura or our energetic body. And it's really moving. It's not like our intuition is only in our gut because we have a gut feeling about something. That's one way of knowing,
Yeah.
or one way
Yeah.
of receiving it, right? But so is our vision. Our dreams are very intuitive, even when they're not necessarily prophetic dreams, but they might be helping you process something, right? And so the fact that you said your intuition expands when you
Yeah.
go into a creative space, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely yes. Like I can't
Yeah.
cheer that enough. As, yeah, I absolutely believe that, and it's one of the reasons why I'm constantly encouraging people to be creative in
Yeah.
whatever way creativity comes up for you. If it's
Yeah.
painting, if it's drawing, drawing is something that I actually do quite a lot, but I don't see it as drawing because here's an example. Um, this is one of my artworks. It doesn't look like
I
drawing.
love your artwork.
Thank you. This one's called The Hinterland. But like in here is a lot of drawing. You can see that there's,
Yeah.
different ways that I'm using lines and shapes, and but it doesn't look like a still life
Yeah.
or an image of a person, their body. Even when I do, I'll share one other. This is a very different kind of artwork than I generally share, but I've been doing these portraits, these self portraits actually is, but let's see if I find one that. Here's one. Um, so this is drawing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not realism,
Yes.
and it is. It's a very different way of expressing, but I was for a long time really resistant to saying that I could draw, because can I sit down and draw a realistic, lifelike, portrait of
Yeah.
myself or someone else? Probably, if I really tried, it would not be very pleasurable for me. Like I would not enjoy it. I would be really highly critical of it. Even though I have a degree in art, right? I have a degree in art education. Not only can I make art technically professionally, but then I can teach other people how to do it too, right?
Yeah.
And still I struggle with saying I can draw.
Yeah.
Because there's this kind of
there's a lot of judgment associated with what is considered to be acceptable art. And
yes.
I really resonate with your story because I think that was also what blocked me from painting, because I didn't enjoy drawing things in realistic ways.
I
And
don't
yet
either.
that was the perception of, yeah, for me it was like play. I want to play with color, I want to play with paints.
Yes. Yes. Play with
Yeah.
color. Do that. Do it
Right.
all day long if you can.
Yeah.
Play more, I think, is one of the big things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it is like I play with food a lot, right? Like my partner laughs at me because she'll be like, "Are you done plating up dinner? Have you taken your Instagram photo for it?" Which most of the time I don't even share those photos, but maybe it's because I worked in a restaurant in catering, and we would plate the dinners.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something that I just love about eating pretty food.
Yeah.
And I'm vegetarian, so I most of the time I'm cooking with vegetables which are really bright in color and
Yeah.
fruits, and and so it is art to me.
Yes.
And there's something that makes it you're so much more present
Yeah.
with it when you're actually creating this food, appreciating how it looks, appreciating it from all these different levels, and then at least for me, as I'm eating it, I'm also appreciating it for its nourishment, for it bringing beauty into my life, for it bringing joy into my life in all these different ways.
That is beautiful, and that is part of how you express, right? That's your part of your creative expression and your truth as well. Like that's what lights you up.
Yeah, you can
So,
tell, right? Because I
yeah.
get excited.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'd love to hear from those who are watching. Oh, beautiful. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Very cool. I love it. Mine, I know we've been talking, so mine isn't super finished, but yeah, I started writing in here some of the things that have been coming up for me about, what is true for me. So, and I like how both of us are very different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and yet there's some similarities too. Hold yours up again. So the shapes are actually kind of similar. Yeah. I love it. So also, anyone who's creating with us here today, I'd love for you to, if you're interested in sharing, just post in the comments. You can take a quick picture of what you've created, or you can share one thing that really has resonated with you, one takeaway that you will take with you from this. And if you're watching on the replay, just post #replay and then share about it. And both Swati and I will come in and we'll be, looking at the comments, and would love to hear from you and engage with you too. So I know we've only got 2 minutes left. This goes by so quickly. And reminder that if you are interested in taking this project and then kind of revisiting it, this coming Saturday night would be a great time to
Saturday night, all of Sunday night.
And, that's actually something that's an interesting, maybe kind of last words of wisdom as we get ready to part ways. But would you talk about, I know there's a lot about the energy of like a full moon being kind of 3 days before and 3 days after, but sometimes I feel an upcoming transit or an upcoming just connection with a planet like way in advance of something, or maybe stronger after. So can you talk a little bit about, that's a natural thing, right? Like
that's a natural thing. Yeah. Especially if you, this is what I've noticed personally. If you're very intuitive, you're going to be able to tap into that. Also, if you have a lot of Aquarius planets in your own chart, you are tapping into that future energy already. Like you have that connection to it. And, you don't have to have planets there, but many of us have that capability of all of us really have that capacity. For some of us it's more obvious, for some of us it's latent, but you might feel that energy days before. And that's why sometimes it doesn't help to get fixated on what's happening on this day and what's happening tomorrow, because it's all like this soup of 10 different transits happening at one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And we might resonate more with one than another. Like I have a really strong connection with Venus.
yeah,
Makes a lot of sense. I have a lot of
yeah,
energy in Virgo. So
yeah,
it's almost like I can tell when Venus is close to the earth
yeah, yeah,
without looking in the sky, just because I can feel that. But sometimes it may not be a date that's on the calendar. And I know
yeah,
I tend to bring things up or align different classes and workshops with those dates, because from a collective sense, there's some kind of trend or theme
yeah,
happening, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
personally, if it's coming up for you at whatever time it's coming up for you, then that's the right time.
That's the right time for you. Yeah, yeah. And with respect to the full moon, the moon is becoming full over a period of days. So we are feeling that energy build up. And that is why the day before, the day off, and the day after are all three of them are good days to tap into that energy. Um, and, personally, if this full moon is happening at the 29th degree of Aquarius. So if you already have planets at earlier degrees in Aquarius, you're going to feel it, because that energy is already being activated at those earlier degrees as well. So it doesn't have to be at that exact point. So it's just about noticing how the energy is showing up for you, and then responding in the way that is best for you.
That feels good, right?
Yeah,
That feels aligned for you.
yeah,
Beautiful. Wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful. So, Swati, as we are getting ready to sign off, yeah, Lachelle says, definitely feeling it. I believe it. I think this
yeah,
is one that a lot of people really are feeling, and I'm seeing that in a lot of different ways for people,
yeah,
right? Because each one of us is unique and has our own kind of internal stuff going on, as well as what's
yeah.
going on in our kind of
Collective.
sphere, but then
Yeah,
also in the collective and where we are in that. So
yeah,
um, yeah, it's something that is can be really really supportive, uh, and know that once you might have moments where you really take a deep dive with something, and then you need to go somewhere else for a while, or maybe set it down for a little while. Just honor that, like really
yeah,
really allow yourself to tune in and ask, is this helping me right now, is this nourishing me, or
yeah,
is this stressing me out? And then follow those things that really are nourishing for you.
yeah. That's beautifully said.
Thank you. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up. Swati, where can people find you if they want to know more?
Activateyourtruthandpower.com.
Okay,
So,
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
Swati just pumps out all this amazing information, a wealth of knowledge, and really great videos, and a beautiful newsletter. So I definitely recommend sign up, follow Swati you're on Instagram and Facebook.
And
And
Facebook, yeah, and I have a free Facebook group. You'll find the link on my website, activateyourtruthandpower.com. But the Facebook group is where I tend to share the content first. So that's, if you feel called to, feel free to join.
wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Continue
Thank you.
posting in the comments below if you have questions. Remember, just hashtag replay, and we'll know you came in on the replay. And we'll see you again soon. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Regina. Bye, everyone.
Bye.